Welcome to another English class. Today, we want to consider one of the parts of speech we have in English language. You will agree with me that speaking and writing wouldn't be made complete to a large extent if we do not have a full understanding or full knowledge on the parts of speech that we have in English. So on a peripheral note, I would like to state that basically we have 8 parts of speech, and the adjectives are one of them. Adjectives are one of the parts of speech we have in English language, and today we want to look at it closely. Now we want to consider adjectives because you can't possibly go a day or two without using adjectives. Adjectives are word modifiers. Adjectives are used to add extra meaning to sentences. Adjectives are used individually to describe a person, an environment, a thing, an object, and all words. So it's necessary, it's vital that we look at adjectives and know how they are used and the varying aspects of adjectives. So let's get started. All right, we have a learning objective, and it says by the end of the lesson, students should be able to define adjectives and state the positions. All right, define the degrees of adjectives, mention the order of adjectives. Very important. Now, for some of us who may not have been conversant with the outlines, the learning objectives, it is pertinent for us to know that in using adjectives of more than one, it's right for you to know that adjectives have order. You don't just use adjectives for using sake, but you use them the way they ought to appear. So these and much more are what we will be considering in this class. So here we have definition of adjective. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or a pronoun. Now remember, when I started, I made mention of the fact that adjectives are word modifiers. Basically, in language, we have 2 word modifiers, and they are adjectives and adverbs. Now, when we say that the word is a modifier, we are only saying that it adds extra meaning to a word. I can say I bought a book. I have made a sentence. It is a complete sentence because it has the subject, it has the verb, and it has the object. Now I can add an extra meaning to the sentence by giving a book a description. So if I say I bought a yellow book, I have been able to add an extra meaning to the previous sentence with the word yellow, which is an adjective of color. So as we go into the lesson proper, you would say that we have varying types of adjectives, or do I say order of adjectives? And in order of adjectives, we'll bring in the aspects of proper adjectives, color adjectives, and etc. So adjectives, like we said, are words that are used to modify a noun or a pronoun. It could also be seen as a word that describes. You know, when you want to describe a person, you basically use your adjective. We have descriptive words. Adjectives are part of the descriptive words. Adverbs are descriptive words. Verbs are descriptive words. But basically, adjectives are words that describe nouns and pronouns. Now, one would ask, why would adjective describe a pronoun? Remember, in our primary level, we're made to understand that pronouns are words used in place or instead of a noun. Basically, it means that whatever you do to a noun, you do likewise to a pronoun. If you say that adjectives describe nouns and you leave out pronouns, if you have a pronoun in a sentence, are we going to say that adjectives won't describe them? And that's a no, because pronouns are used in place of a noun to reduce the monotonous use of a noun in a sentence. If I have a sentence, Smith visited the girl, Smith visited the girl, I want to change Smith to a pronoun. It's possible. So I'm changing Smith, who is a male, to he, which is used for male names from the pronoun aspect. So he is a pronoun used to replace the noun word Smith. And that is why we say that adjectives are words used to describe or modify nouns or pronouns. So you wouldn't think that adjectives only modify nouns. They also modify or describe pronouns. That being said, let's go further. It says in general, the purpose of an adjective is to describe a noun, a pronoun, and provide more information about it. That I have said. Adjectives provide answers to questions such as what kind, which one, and who is it. Now, to demonstrate how adjectives work, let's look at two example sentences. The first sentence has no adjective and the second sentence has two adjectives. Now, look at the first sentence. It says, Oprah bought shoes at the store. Oprah bought shoes at the store. It's a simple sentence passing a simple idea about an individual called Oprah, all right, who bought shoes at the store. And we have the two noun words. You have shoes and you have store. These are noun words. And remember, we said in using adjectives to describe, the adjectives must describe nouns or pronouns. So it's out of place for you to say that adjectives are describing prepositions. So if you want to use your adjectives, make sure you're using it alongside with a noun to describe that noun. So we want to add more information to the sentence without adjective, and that is what we want to show us that adjectives do. So Oprah bought, I'm giving the adjective new to shoes, and I'm giving the adjective busy to store. Now, Oprah bought new shoes at the busy store. Oprah bought new shoes. So we have been able to actualize one thing to add an extra meaning to the shoes. What type of shoes? New shoes. Someone could say worn out shoes. Someone could say expensive shoes. So there are varying adjectives that you could use to describe shoes. Somebody can say Oprah bought a yellow shoe. You've used color. Someone can say new. You have used age. All right. So by the time we progress, you see the order of adjectives and how they are basically used. So the new store, we have been able to, attach an adjective to the store. We are now looking at the store as a busy one. So that's what we refer to adjectives describing words or adding extra meaning to a sentence. So as much as adjectives have been used to describe shoes and store, they've also added extra meaning to the sentence and lengthened the sentence that we have. But it's still a simple sentence all the same. It hasn't changed from being a simple sentence to a complex or a compound sentence. So both of these sentences are perfectly fine. Yes. What makes a sentence it's its ability to have the subject, the verb, and the object. So you can say that something is a sentence or group of words is a sentence by virtue of having the elements necessary for a sentence, and these elements are the subject, the verb, and the object. So both of these sentences are perfectly fine. However, the second sentence gives more information. All right, it didn't just say something. It didn't just tell us that Oprah went to buy shoes at the store. No, we didn't stop at that. Rather, it gave us extra information: the nature of shoes bought and the type of store Oprah bought the shoes from. So that's extra information. It tells us that adjectives describe, when you're describing something, you give extra information that when someone gets to that place, by virtue of the adjective words given, the person is able to identify the right things, and that's the extra information given. All right, so the second sentence tells us the shoes that Oprah bought haven't been used before, and that the store that she went to had a lot of customers in it. That's the extra information. As Oprah didn't buy a worn-out shoe, like I said, but rather she went for a new shoe, and outside that, the store that she went to is not one that is less of humans. It's not one that is less of customers, but the one she went to, it's one that had so many customers. All right, so that's been established about adjectives. Let's go deeper. Now, two ways that adjectives are used in sentences and clauses. Now, remember in one of our classes, I did define clauses. We say that clauses are a group of words that have finite verbs. They can stand on their own. They make sense. Now, in what we'll call word formation, the grammatical structure of a word or grammatical unit in English, we have the sentence. And from the sentence, you can get a clause. From the clause, you can get phrases. From phrases, you get words. And from words, you get morphemes. Now, it's actually possible for us to carve out a clause from a sentence. And it's also possible for you to say that in a clause, you could have a sentence. Why do I say so? Because when you have the main clause and the subordinate clause, these two form what we call a sentence. The two can form what we call the complex sentence. It can form two main clauses can form what you call the compound sentence. And when you have the subordinate clause and the main clause joined together, it could give you either the complex sentence or the compound complex sentence, depending. Then also your clause, in a clause, you could get the simple sentence. So it's possible for you to use your adjectives in clauses. It's not out of place to use adjective in clauses. As a matter of fact, a simple sentence is one independent clause. So basically, there is no sentence, there is no clause if you do not have a sentence. So you must have a sentence to deduce the clause. All right, so let's look at two ways that adjectives are used. Now, the adjective is right next to the noun or pronoun that it modifies. Most of the time, adjectives come before the nouns and pronouns they modify, but they can sometimes come after them. All right, adjectives can sometimes come after the noun or the pronoun. It can come before the noun or the pronoun, depending on the writer or the speaker, depending on what you want to describe. So when you're describing, your adjective can come before the noun. That's what we're saying basically. Adjectives can come before noun. Nouns can come before adjectives. Adjectives can come before pronouns. Pronouns can come before adjectives. Depends on your sentence structure. All right, so let's look at this example. The bluebird built a nest. The bluebirds built a nest. Now we have what we call adjective of color, and that's the blue, the word blue. The bluebirds built the nest. So the adjective blue modifies the birds. All right, and we can see that the adjective blue came before the birds. The next one says, I was looking for someone else. I was looking for someone else. The adjective else modifies the pronoun someone. So you see that in this case, the pronoun it's before the adjective. So we've been able to actualize the two definitions we gave, that adjectives can come before nouns and nouns can as well come before the adjective, so vice versa. So the adjective follows a linking verb and functions as a subject complement. It follows a linking verb. What is a linking verb? The linking verb is our auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs are called linking verbs. So the example we have here is the house is old. So you see that in this case, it's following the linking verb is. The girl is beautiful. The boy is outspoken. So when we give such sentences, it's the case of adjective following the linking verb. So the adjective old follows the linking verb is. Old modifies the noun house as a subject complement of the sentence. All right, so basically what we have actualized here now is that adjectives come before nouns and they can actually come after nouns. Aside these two, we can actually have a case of adjective following the linking verb, and we stated that linking verbs are our auxiliary verbs, what we also call helping verbs. Now let's look at example of adjectives in sentences. So these are sentences, and the words in red are the adjectives. Now we have Gavin is a smart guy. The big basket is full of red apples. Now sentence 2 and sentence 3 tells us one thing, that you can have two adjectives in a sentence. As a matter of fact, more than two adjectives. Sometimes the adjectives could be together. They could cluster, all right, while sometimes they could be spread. depending on the nouns that you want to describe. If I'm describing just one word, one noun word, it's possible to have two adjectives clustered. Now, if I'm describing two nouns in different positions in the sentence, then I can as well have two adjectives but describing the individual noun words in the sentence. Okay, so the big basket is full of red apples. Here we've been able to describe two noun words, baskets and apples. Same thing with sentence 3. The cocky rabbit lost the race to the careful tortoise. The cocky rabbit lost the race to the careful tortoise. Now let's go to the next one. You see that the last one has the masked villain's plot was stopped by the brave Griffith teenagers. Now, teenagers have been described using two adjectives. And also we've seen a case of describing the dog using two adjectives. They are goofy, cowardly dog. All right. Now, let's look at this. It says an adjective comes either before or after the noun that it modifies. She is a tall girl. She is quite tall for her age. Most adjectives appear before a noun and they are called attributive adjectives. So when adjectives appear before a noun, it is called attributive adjective. And that's the example we have there. So whenever you have an adjective, when you want to use your adjectives attributively, or what you're saying is you are going to use the adjective before the noun word. Now, adjectives that come after the noun must follow a linking verb. Adjectives that come after the noun must follow a linking verb, and they are known as the predicative adjective. The girl is industrious. That's predicative. When you say that something is a predicate, that means it's the end part of a sentence. So most adjectives can be in either position, but some adjectives use only one of these positions, either before the noun or after the noun. Now let's look at the attributive adjectives that come before a noun. These are attributive adjectives. They come before the noun. That we must have at the back of our minds, that when we use adjectives and they are before the noun, they are called attributive adjectives. Now let's look at it. It says, not everyone knows a giraffe. Not everyone knows a giraffe has a long neck. The adjective long has been used to describe the noun word neck. My second-hand car is the noisiest in the neighborhood. Now, I would like to use this opportunity to state that we have what we call compound adjectives. Just the way we have compound nouns, we have compound adjectives, and these are two words hyphenated. Some compound adjectives are hyphenated, some are not hyphenated. So it depends on the origin. So this second-hand car is a compound adjective used to describe the car. Will you have starry sky today? Will you have starry sky today? That word starry, it's the adjective used to describe the sky. He was found with a fractured skull. We followed the exquisite couple for a dinner. Sorry, I put the couple in red. The couple is the noun, it's not an adjective. That's a mistake. So we followed the exquisite couple. The adjective here is exquisite, while the couple is the noun that the exquisite describes. Now finally we have the predicative adjectives. That's adjectives that come after a noun. Now we see the noun starting the sentence and adjectives ending the sentence. Now basically it's not a must that adjectives will end the sentence. There are sentences, like I said, the structure of your sentence will determine. There are sentences that won't end adjectives. Other parts of speech could actually end the adjective. All right, but what we're saying basically is that the noun comes before the adjective. So whenever you have an adjective appear before a noun word, it is called predicative adjective. Now the example here says the stranger looks scary. Remember, one other thing we pointed is that predicative adjectives will always follow a linking verb. Predicative adjectives follow linking verbs, and you will see it. I will keep mentioning the linking verbs in the sentence. Immediately after the linking verb, it's the adjective. So the stranger is the noun, and looks is the linking verb. Scary is the adjective. So the stranger looks scary. Now, scary describes the stranger. That an adjective doesn't appear immediately after the noun doesn't make it not describing the noun. No. All what we are saying is that adjectives describe nouns, and once you notice that the noun word is being talked about in a certain way, that's the description given to it. So the stranger looks scary. Scary is the adjective used to describe the stranger. Looks is the what? Is the linking verb. Looks links the stranger to the word that describes the stranger, which is scary. Now the duck soup is hot and spicy. The duck soup is hot and spicy. Remember I mentioned that two adjectives can be used in a sentence. Now the soup that we're talking about isn't just hot, but as well spicy. So spicy is an adjective as well as hot, which are used to describe the duck soup. Is the linking verb. Now you see that we have that verb with s, that singular verb that comes with s, and we have the verbs, the linking verbs without s, and that's your plural linking verbs. The verbs with s are singular linking verbs, while without s is a plural linking verb. If it were to be that we had the strangers, we can't say the strangers looks. That would be grammatically incorrect. So because we have the subject as singular, that is why we are going for the singular verb looks. We've once treated that when we looked at the topic concord under verb, where we say that the subject has to agree with the verb. So the subject has to agree with the verb, and that's why we have looks. So do not have it at the back of your mind that linking verbs with s are basically the only linking verbs we use in sentences when we want to use our predicative adjectives. No, we have plural verbs. As a matter of fact, the verbs with s are called singular linking verbs. Then without s is a plural linking verbs. So if it were to be that I had strangers here, it will go for the plural verb look. All right, I hope that has been established. So the boss appears angry. The boss appears angry. Appears is the linking verb, which links the boss, which is a singular, to angry, which is the adjective. The milk tastes sour. The milk tastes sour. Sour is the adjective used to describe the taste of the milk. Right? So the question sounds silly. That's a silly question. You see, I've been able to use silly as an attributive. All right, I've been able to use silly in an attributive form, while when I said that is a silly question. That question is silly. So you see that silly as an adjective can be used attributively and predicatively. That was what we said earlier on, that there are certain words that can be, certain adjectives rather, that can be used predicatively and attributively, and silly is one of them. I've been able to use it attributively, that is before the noun word, and we've been able to use it predicatively. That is a silly question. So the silly describes a question. It's just like saying the boy is silly, and what a silly boy we have here. So you see that silly functions predicatively as well as attributively. Next is I soon grew bored listening to his horror story. So who grew bored? I. So you see that I is the pronoun. Remember we said that adjectives are used to describe nouns and pronoun. So this I here could be someone mentioning himself or herself, and saying that he or she grew bored. So that's it. The suspects remained silent when questioned. That's the suspect. It is the suspect that remained silent. So finally, it says the predicative adjective comes after the linking verb and also acts as what? A complement. All right, having established the two types of adjectives that we have, remember we said we have the attributive adjective and the predicative adjective. We said that attributive adjectives are those adjectives that appear before the noun, and we said predicative adjectives are adjectives that appear before the linking, after the linking verb rather. It follows the linking verb. Now predicative means the end, all right, and attributive means before the noun word. Attributive is before the noun word. Predicative is after the noun word. So having established that, we want to look at degrees of adjective. Very important. There is something that I've noticed over time, the case of people using two comparative words or two superlative words at the same time. It is my desire that after going through this topic, people will come to establish the fact that two comparative words cannot be used together in a sentence and two superlative words ought not to. All right, you know that in grammar when you say ought not to, that means it's compulsory, it's something that has to be done, necessity is laid on it. So we'll look at the degrees of adjectives. Now adjectives have 3 degrees that compare one thing to another or one person to another. These 3 degrees of adjectives express the intensity of adjective in increasing order. It expresses the intensity, the height of adjectives in increasing order. So when a word is being mentioned and you have 2 people or 2 things you want to compare them with, obviously you have to heighten, you have to intensify the use of your adjective by adding the appropriate morpheme or prefix. You add the appropriate morpheme, you add appropriate prefix, or let's say generally you add the appropriate affix. Remember we said that affix could be a prefix or a suffix, or you add your inflections. That's what we refer to as a part of a kind of morphemes. And we said that morphemes are letters or a letter you add to the end of a word to, have another word. Now basically we have 2 word modifiers. We have 3 comparative words. We have we have 3 degrees of adjective. You have your positive, you have your comparative, and you have your superlative adjective. Sorry about this. All right, so this is it, degrees of adjective. You have your positive, you have your comparative, and you have your superlative. These are the 3 degrees of adjectives. Now, positive is the adjective itself. All right, when we talk about positive, we talk about the roots of the adjective, the base of the adjective. All right, so it denotes the mere existence of a quality. That's what it denotes, the mere existence of the quality, that the fact that this exists. Okay, I know that we have a word as stupid. I know that we have a word as intelligent. I know we have a word as fast. I know we have a word as big. I know we have a word as exquisite. That's the positive degree, the existence of a quality. Now, this positive degree of adjective has no comparison. It only describes a word without comparing it to anything. Okay, so examples we have here are Tina is wearing a red dress, leopards are fast, the big dog chased the cat, there are 4 pencils in the box. All right, so we move to the second degree of adjective, and that's the comparative degree of adjective. And when we talk about comparative adjective, we'll look at the aspect of comparing 2 things. Okay, we compare 2 things, maybe one noun with another noun, one pronoun with another pronoun. All right, so in these instances, only 2 items are being compared. You are not comparing three things. You are rather comparing just two items. It could be two persons, it could be two objects, it could be two things, it could be two countries. All right, so it could be two clothes. You want to compare two things. When you hear of comparative adjective, you are comparing two things. Now, words like than and to are used after a comparative adjective in a sentence to show comparison of the two things. Now, this is the format. You have the noun, that's the subject. You have the verb, you have the comparative adjective, you have than, then you have the other noun, which is the object. Now, I want to compare, all right, two students who are quite intelligent. Okay, I'm comparing two students who are quite intelligent, and I'm saying that Jerry is intelligent and Jeffrey is also intelligent. Jerry is intelligent. Jerry is the subject. Verb is, and the positive adjective is intelligent. I'm yet to come in with the comparative adjective, but I've given you two students that I know that are intelligent. Now I want to use the comparative adjective for intelligence. Remember, intelligent is a positive. That's the base word. All right. So I want to compare Jerry and Jeffrey. I want to know who is more intelligent. All right. So I have Jerry is the verb. Comparative adjective, more intelligent than Jeffrey. So this is the format. Once you want to compare two persons, the subject comes followed by a verb, then the comparative adjective, you have your than, and you have the object, which is also the noun. That's the person, the object, or the thing you are comparing with the other. Likewise, the subject. The subject is the very first person. The object is the person that you are comparing the person with. All right. So that being said, let's look at some examples. Now, these are examples of comparative adjective. The box is smaller than the one found. Robert is smarter than Albert. My hair is longer than my sister's. Amanda is prettier than her friends. He is more intelligent than his brother. Now, I will take us back to sentence 4. All right, sentence 4 says Amanda is prettier than her friends. Now, if you want to use a superlative word, we've been able to do something. You notice that our comparative words are formed by adding ER to the adjective. All right, that's to the positive, the base word, by adding IER to the base word, and by adding the prefix more to the base word. All right. Now, it is outrightly wrong for one to say Amanda is more prettier than her friends. People say that, and it's wrong. You do not use two comparative words at the same time. Two comparative words must not be used at the same time. So if you're going to use more with the word pretty, then leave it at more pretty. Do not say more prettier. When you say more prettier, that is what we refer to as tautology. When you use the same thing, the same word representing the same thing together in a sentence. I want to believe I'm cleared. Now look at this word stupid. We have stupid. You can have more stupid, and you also have stupider. It sounds weird, right? But it's actually correct. There are certain adjectives in their in their degree can be formed using more or using the ER or IER. So stupid is one of them. Handsome is one of them too. So you can say he's handsomer than his brother, or you say he's more handsome than his brother. But it's out of place for you to say he is more handsomer than his brother. More and are two comparative words and ought not to be used. All right, so let's see that we don't do that. It applies also to the superlative. Don't say she is the most prettiest in the class. It's wrong. She's the most prettiest in the class. Note, two comparative words, two superlative words ought not to be used together in a sentence. All right, so this is a superlative degree. Superlative degree is used to compare two or more nouns. They are also used to compare one thing against the rest of the group. Yes, you have a group of persons, you can use your superlative to compare. So it expresses the highest intensity of a thing in comparison to other things. The highest intensity. Comparative is the higher, then superlative is the highest. And that is why we use most, we use est, or we use est in superlative words. So words like of and in are used after a superlative adjective in a sentence. An article, the, that's your definite article, should be used before a superlative degree when modifying a particular noun. So this is how it goes when we want to use our superlative, just like the case of the comparative is the same thing, but the difference is where we have than, we have the, and where we have superlative adjective, we had comparative adjective for the comparative degree. So we have noun, you have the verb, you have the, you have superlative. So in a class of five, opera, it's, I'm using the superlative, I'm going by the format. Opera, which is the subject noun, is the verb, the most outstanding student. All right, you see it. Opera is the most outstanding student. Superlative, most outstanding student. Now, I want to use another superlative word other than most, and we are going by the word pretty. So the root word is pretty. So we have opera is the prettiest in the class. Opera is the prettiest in the class. You see it. So I did not say opera is the most prettiest. It's wrong. Comparative words must be used individually. Do not use two comparative, do not use two superlative words at the same time. So the sentences we have here says that Rohan is the tallest in the class. The road is the busiest. So you can see how superlatives are formed. We can form superlative by adding est. We can form superlative by adding iest. We can form superlative by adding most. Now those with iest are those words that end with y. Basically, when you have a word ending with y and you want to form your superlative in those words, that y changes to I, then you add your iest. That's the difference between words that end with, certain consonants. You just add your est. But once it's y, the y is changed to I, then your est. So Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. There are so many mountains, more than 2 mountains. So Mount Everest is said to be the highest. Remember, we said superlative comparison has to do with more than 2. Once you're comparing 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, use your superlative adjective, and that's most, est, and est. All right, so we have Sima is the most intelligent girl in the class. Then my house is the largest one in our area. Obviously, in your area, you have more than a house or 2. Then yours stands to be the highest. All right, let's look at what we call irregular degree of adjectives. Now we have looked at basically what we could refer to as regular degree of adjectives, and you can say that regular degree of adjectives are classified into 2, and that's your into 3 rather. That's your positive, comparative, and superlative. It's just like where you have your regular nouns, regular verbs, and irregular verbs. So for the irregular verbs, they are formed by a total change in the comparative and the superlative. Remember, in regular adjectives where we have our positive, we have our comparative, and we have our superlative, we have the case of adding words, er, the words are the same. The positive words are the same, where we have busy, and in the comparative we have busier, And in the superlative, we have busiest. That's what you call regular. There is no change. The only thing you had was to alter the end words, showing the degree, the intensity of the adjective. But in irregular adjectives, what do? There is a total change, just like regular and irregular verbs. There is a total change in the comparative and in the superlative. But the contextual use, all right, tells you that you are looking at it from the angle of comparison and the angle of superlative. I hope that is understood. So there are some adjectives which do not form compare and superlative forms. They have irregular degree of adjectives and do not follow any rule. There is no rule. So you have your good, better, best. You know, the common song children sing in maybe in nursery school or kindergarten, where they tell you good, better, best. I shall never rest until my good is better and my better best. So when that is being done, the teacher is apparently teaching you your irregular adjectives and the use. So when you are good, you can move from being good to being better, and from being better to being the best. All right. So the next is bad, worse, worst. Bad, worse, worst. You have much, much, most. You have late, later, last. You have far, farther, and farthest. Then you have little, less, and least. All right. So finally, let's look at the order of adjectives. Very important, order of adjectives. Now, adjectives appear in certain order. You don't just use adjectives at random. Remember, I said it's possible that in a sentence you have more than one adjective. Now, you're having more than one adjective. Could be adjective of the same attributes. It can be adjectives of varying attributes, all right? So when you're using them, you must use them accordingly. When you don't use them accordingly, you tend to fail for exam purposes. Now, it's important for us to know that sometimes we speak and people don't take to cognizance the order that is being used. All what they know is that you have passed a message across. But for exam purposes, it's not the same. You must use it the way it ought to be used if you must pass in an exam. So writing is different from when we do our normal speaking with people that we know. That's your informal speaking. But for formal speaking, then you have to use your order of adjectives appropriately. So in many languages, adjectives denoting attributes usually occur in specific order. Generally, the adjective order in English is you have quantity first, quantity or what we call number. So when you are starting off, you want to start your adjective, you want to describe a thing, you want to describe a person, you want to describe an object. We are not saying that all of these would come there, all of these adjectives must be there, but it's possible you have about 3 or 4. If you have 3 or 4, how do I arrange them? That's what we mean by order. There should be decorum. There should be a proper way to present your adjectives. It will be out of place that you have something like some and you leave the some. You want to make a sentence, some big old students. You leave the some and you're saying big some old students. That would be wrong, and that's why we want to look at order of adjective. You can memorize this order, and even in your exam, once you see something that looks like it, you write it down, and with the order of adjectives, you're sure to excel in that exam. So we have quantity or number. Quantity or number could mean some, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be few. All right, then you have your quality. When we talk about quality, you talk about adjectives like beautiful, handsome, good looking, attractive. These are quality adjectives. You have adjective of size. What's the size? Is it big? Is it small? All right. You have age, old, young. You have shape. Is it rectangular? Is it round? You have color. You know your colors, your varying colors, pink, blue. Then you have proper adjectives. That could be nationality, origin. What's the type of material? Is it a leather material? What's the origin? Is it from Nigeria? Is it from Australia? Then finally, what it qualifies, and that's the noun word. All right, this is a perfect example. All right, so it says, I love that beautiful old big green antique car. All right, so this is it. Quality, what's quality? That's beautiful. Age is old, size is big, color is green, antique is the proper adjective. Now you can see that we don't have shape here. So if it were to be that we had shape, shape will obviously come, all right, before you put your column. Right, so we have a wonderful old Italian clock. In this sentence, having varying number of adjectives, we have opinion, which is as well the quality. You have your age, then you have origin. Old is the age, then the origin is Italian. We have the next one, which says a big square blue box. A big square blue box. You have a disgusting pink plastic. That's color and material. Some slim new French trousers. That's origin, the origin of the trouser. It's French. You have an amazing new American movie. Origin is American. I bought a pair of black leather shoes. So you just have color and you have material. So what we are saying in essence is it's possible for you to have more than one adjective in a sentence. And in a case you have more than one adjective in a sentence, what do? Follow the order of adjectives and you're sure to pass that exam. All right, so we'll have to go through our ExamGuide app. Let's look at one or two questions there. Then we'll forge ahead. All right, I had to go to search and I have one here already. It says, we all look forward to meeting the... Who are we looking forward to meeting? Remember our order of adjective. Number one says we look forward to meeting the beautiful young Nigerian musician. We're looking forward to meeting the young Nigerian beautiful musician. Nigerian young beautiful musician. And you have the last one, Nigerian beautiful young musician. Now remember, in our order of adjective, we said the first point of call is quantity. So since we don't have anything like quantity here, what do we look out for? That's our opinion. That's the quality. After quantity, you have quality. And that means, unlike some examiners, they will give you options that could be tricky. But in this case, the options are not tricky. We just have one option starting with beautiful, and that's a giveaway answer. So sometimes you could be lucky once you know the first point of call in identifying your order of adjectives, it could help you. So without much ado, it's obvious that the answer is A, because beautiful, it's the very first word after quantity. We don't have anything that like quantity. We have quantity, then the next is quality, and beautiful is quality. So the answer is A. Let's check. Oh, perfect. Here we have, it says, in the order of adjectives and according to adjectives of sentence, opinion or quality comes first. That's the explanation, but remember that doesn't come first. But for the sake of this question, that is the first. What comes first is quantity, some beautiful. So in the case where you have some beautiful young Nigerian musicians, that means the some would be the first point of call, not quality. Quantity comes before quality. So we are correct with the answer. The answer is A. All right, let's try and check another one. Then you would have to go through some other questions that are posing on. All right, let's look at this one. Okay, this is another one. It says the proposal looks dash than others. The proposal looks dash than others. Remember, we're looking at order of adjectives. More workable a little bit than others. Some people will say it doesn't sound right, and because it doesn't just sound right, they don't choose it as an answer. But let's go with the order of adjective. Little has to do with quantity. All right, more, remember, is already a comparative word. So we can't start with more in the order of adjective. A little is a quantity. So just like always they've given us is a giveaway, a little bit more workable. All right, so we have to start off before we get to the comparative. More workable than others. All right, so that's the answer. B is the answer. So what do we have? It says adverbs or adverbials modify verbs. Adjectives are other adverbs. In the above, more workable is the adjective and a little bit is modifying adverbials. Hence, B is the most suitable for it. All right, so I would enjoin you to try your hands in other aspects of adjective and see how far you have learned. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using the ExamGuide app. The app scores and gives a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. You can learn a particular topic of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and practice mode. It also has other features that make learning fun. It is a must-have for all serious students. Download from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and share the videos to people that will benefit from it. Bye.